So we just finished up Enjoy GameDev. Our online GameDev conference went super great. Really thrilled. Thank you everyone who attended and was a part of the event. Of course, as well to our speakers and to people who sponsored tickets for others. One of the points that spun off from, it wasn't like really the main focus of my talk. My talk was about rapid prototyping. But one of the points that spun off was right at the end, I talked about high yield prototypes, where instead of focusing on just really kind of picking one core concept, it's really like, okay, you know what? Every single day for 7 months for Inaction Artist, I made a new playable gameplay prototype digitally. That yield from that, I had a few projects out of there that became either high-ranking iOS or iPad apps, one that paid my rent for a while, one that helped get me to grad school, one that helped get me to Indiecade. But those came from that high yield of 219 things to draw upon the best of. Or helped start off kind of the whole indie game movement was Ron Carmel's and his team at Entertainment Technology Center at Carnegie Mellon's Experimental Gameplay Workshop, which every single week made a prototype until Tower of Goo emerged from one of those. Or likewise, around the same era, Crayon Physics from Clooney Games also came from Clooney Games at the time was doing a one game a month thing. This is before McFunky Pants, our mentor in residence with Camp Keto Club, started the whole one game a month movement, which of course has helped him out, helped Jake Burkett out, helped Lisa Shreya out, helped a lot of people out in terms of when you just do one thing consistently, whether it's once every single week, once every single month, once every single day, whatever you're doing it at, you get three awesome effects out of it, okay? First off, you get sheer number yield. Like if you think about, there's this old saying, right? Like in order to have the 1 in 10 good ideas, you got to have a workplace or environment that allows you to have those 9 out of 10 bad ones. Well, if you make 20 things and 1 in 10 are any good, you've got 2 good things, right? You make 30 things and 1 in 10 are any good, you got 3 good things. And then sometimes there's no way to that besides getting that other gunk out of your system to take the creative chances on it. So part of it's just sheer yield, obviously. Part of it's pure practice effects. Part of why I rapid prototype as quickly as I do is because of the sheer volume of that stuff that I tackled. And that led me to starting to learn what corners I can and can't afford to cut, how and when those trade-offs are viable for something that's going to be throwaway code anyway, etc. And the same thing happens for like Anthony Jones, who was one of our other speakers, and I think he's been a guest speaker for our club before, probably be in the podcast soon if he hasn't been. He talked about how like he just does art constantly, every single day, just made a habit of it. Now he streams it and so on, has his own sort of similar kind of club, focused on concept art for industry, and that a lot of his skill came from just raw practice. So you got practice effects in addition to that yield. But the third thing, and this is the one I really want to talk about today, I think where it gets really interesting, is a lot of the good that came for me out of the Interaction Artist series, those 219 daily prototypes, was that maybe 30, 40 games into it of the daily thing, I was running pretty dry on ideas, right? Like before I started, I thought I could have filled pages full of what I would do if I was doing a daily prototype. And pretty soon that well was getting dry. And that's when it really started to kind of push me towards doing weirder things that weren't as obvious, things that weren't on the front of my mind. And I think what made these ultimately more interesting and more valuable was that they were further and further from immediately influenced from things just happening right now, from the popular games at the moment, from ideas everybody's talking about in events, conferences, academia, whatever. And I think about the same thing happens whether you're a musician, a writer, an artist, a programmer, a level designer, whatever it is you do. If you can build a habit of even if you're not spending a ton of time on it, if you kind of do what they traditionally refer to as like right for the waste paper basket, of just not holding yourself back and just do something, whether it's once a week, once a month, once a day if you can, it just leads to start getting to weirder and weirder stuff. And there's some really interesting things that emerge from that only happen when you run dry on the ideas that have sort of been holding you up. I think we all kind of have those layers of ideas that we keep thinking about, we keep cycling in our heads. And once you get it out of your system, it kind of frees you up to check one deeper, try one deeper. And there's no way to that besides just digging and just digging. That's actually part of what I'm hoping to achieve through this. Of course, now my 5th day in a row of a YouTube video every single day. Probably going to lead to some different kinds of discussions than we would have got to otherwise when I was on a weekly schedule. I mean, the opposite thing used to be true, right? When I was still a research student, graduate student at Georgia Tech, and I would spend months doing research for an academic published journals kind of conference. And then I'd come to YouTube and do an hour-long adaptation with my slides and my research and my references and my sources and all that. And anymore, of course, now it's like once a week, we sit down, we chat, and that's what's been going on now for months, thanks to Patreon support. But now I'm trying, okay, well, what if I do this daily? And I bet what's going to happen is real quick, we're going to start to run out of the obvious things, the kind of popular topics, and start to get maybe some little deeper into some other things that I can't even think of right now. I don't even know what they are. I don't know until we get there. in terms of having to dig through that. And whether you're, like, say, a level designer, writer, programmer, level, you name it, musician, that kind of high volume yield consistency is going to help you make some discoveries out of your own capabilities, your own work, your own ideas, in a way that are just buried beneath layers of the stuff that you're thinking about right now. You got to get it out of your system, find a way to do that. So that's all I want to chat about for today. I look forward to playing games in the future, or listening to your music, or reading your stories, or whatever, looking at your art, whatever it is your craft is you focus on. Thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.